So data governance for Copilot and AI in the DIB, what does that mean? Well, we're going to talk about understanding the importance of data governance, outlining some of the items that it's going to address. We'll talk about how to address it through Microsoft's new DSPM, or Data Security Posture Management, and labeling tools that you may already be familiar with. We'll talk about integrating other aspects of the Microsoft security platforms to secure AI and Copilot. We'll wrap up with talking about some regulatory requirements and preparing your workforce for AI as an overall aspect of your organization, monitoring, auditing, and actionable recommendations for the governance once you've got it implemented. So the strategic imperative of data governance and AI and the importance is can't be stated enough. As we've seen, data governance is important and necessity for the defense industrial base as organizations adopt artificial intelligence. With AI increasingly embedded in your workflows, the need to manage, protect, and ensure the compliance of our sensitive data that we have to manage within the DIB is very important. Effective data governance really provides the framework for responsible AI integration, allowing your organizations to actually safeguard the CUI, EAR, ITAR, or other types of data that you may be working with. This foundational approach really not only mitigates, but also aligns with regulatory standards such as CMMC, as well as security best practices. For DIB contractors, this is not really a best practice. Really, this is a really imperative that this is something that you undertake as AI starts to proliferate across your organizations. So you see that some of the other items there that are important as to the reasons why we're taking this approach today on this webinar. There's unique challenges with the adoption of AI for DIB organizations, particularly with the data types that we're trying to protect and manage. As users begin to either in a governed or ungoverned way start to interact with AI platforms, the mechanisms that we have to have in place through various different levels of control are really important. With, as you may have heard, the CMMC maturity model effective November 10th, available to be written into contracts. This really underscores the urgency that if organizations want to continue to adopt AI tools, including Copilot, as well as third-party tools like Gemini and ChatGPT within their boundaries, a governance model needs to be implemented ahead of that. So let's talk about some of the Purview capability features that you may already own within your Microsoft 365, E5, or G5 platform. So Microsoft Purview Data Security, Privacy Management, or Posture Management offers a comprehensive suite of features that's designed to support the continuous compliance monitoring and secure data handling within both Microsoft AI, such as Copilot, as well as third-party AI. Some of the key capabilities include granular access controls, automatic encryption of data, automated incident response mechanisms, as well as others. These tools really enable organizations to maintain real-time visibility into the sensitive data usage, enforce policies for AI usage across the platform and the internet, as well as automatically and swiftly respond to potential breaches. By supporting ongoing and auditing and reporting, Purview DSPM enhances regulatory compliance as well as operational efficiency. For DIB organizations, this means improved audit awareness, the ability to document how you're protecting data within your SSP, and also integrated into data lifecycle as well. So let's talk about how some of the aspects of Purview specifically work to perform this. So the first is through automated data discovery. You'll see a couple of screenshots as we come up here about what that means. We've had automatic labeling available through Purview for many years now, and while some organizations have chosen to dive into that for the protection of CUI, ITAR, and EAR, a lot of organizations have determined that automatic labeling sometimes doesn't work as desired. So as we talk about the various types of ways that we can find this data, we're going to be looking at the different methods that Purview allows us to undertake. There's also policy-based data governance. So policy based on where data lives, where it's coming from, where it's being shared from, or where it's attempted to be exfiltrated from. There's also integration with data loss prevention. Data loss prevention is actually really the glue that holds all of these aspects together, where you have DLP policies that are going to prevent the sharing or upload of data, specifically on sensitive information types or other ways, such as custom sits, trainable classifiers, etc. And then, of course, as with everything, zero trust architecture is going to be applied across all of this. So we want to make sure that the policies themselves are enforcing that aspect. In other words, labeling is a key to the success of governance within AI. Planet has done a recent session, I believe in June, where we talked about labeling specifically within the DIB. So I encourage you, if you did not attend that session, to go seek that one out. There should be an email from Casey that should have a link to that recording if you weren't able to make it. So let's talk about managing governance within AI platforms all up. And while we do mention specifically Copilot, really the focus here is overall across any AI platform, because the approach is pretty much similar regardless of what AI platform a user may be using. So platforms like ChatGPT and Google Gemini have unique governance challenges due to their generative capabilities and access to sensitive data. So in other words, we need to implement strict governance controls to prevent unauthorized data exposure and ensure compliance with things like CMMC. As I mentioned, labeling is certainly a foundation for this, but also enforcing access controls and monitoring AI usage for violations and ethics. By integrating some of the tools we have in the M365 platform, we can also help that to protect data, mitigate risk, and have continuous oversight. For DIB, again, very critical on this front. Users being able to copy data or utilize data as grounding up into third-party AI tools obviously needs to be vetted and monitored before data can be put in those positions, and then also to make sure that if there's policy violations, that there's corrective action being taken. So let's talk about governance specifically in Microsoft Copilot. So really our stance on this comes from deploying almost 500,000 seats of Copilot in the commercial cloud so far as Copilot has progressed in its availability. And while Copilot within GCC High is not yet available, it is in the IL5 cloud for DoD. So we do anticipate that Copilot will be available in the coming months in GCC High. Why I mention that is that ahead of any Copilot adoption, and certainly, as I mentioned, ahead of any large-scale AI adoption, we really want to work through this governance practice. So one of the things that, of course, Copilot is going to bring is a deeper integration into the security tool sets that are available today within Microsoft 365. That means across DLP, labeling, audit, access controls, all of those things are more deeply integrated with the tool sets that you may already be familiar with and using. Of course, it's not just about technology. There's also training, policy configuration, and as well as continuous monitoring on those AI interactions. There is quite a bit of data available, and you'll see, again, a couple of screenshots here that show what that data looks like. If you're familiar with what data Purview gathers today around DLP, around insider risk, and around communications compliance, this is just simply data that flows into those views and then can be actionable based on how you want to perform. So again, we're going to dive a little more deeply into the actual specific tools here. So as I mentioned, there's kind of a multi-layered approach to AI governance, again, regardless if it's Copilot or third-party AI. Again, DLP and endpoint DLP are two really important aspects of the ecosystem. One is the policy that allows the data to be discovered as it's manipulated, and the other is going to be the engine by which the policy is enforced. So the M365 ecosystem offers a robust set of security and compliance tools that are really focused on the DIB organizations within GCC High. As I mentioned, DLP is really about restricting the accidental or unauthorized sharing of regulated data, both internally and externally. while Defender for Endpoint is going to be the advanced threat protection for devices interacting with AI services, such as in the browser or through other means. Purview as a whole is going to integrate all of that information into its monitoring plane, and all those tools work together to support your governance and compliance framework that's going to be implemented. Now, as I've mentioned, specifically, there are controls that can additionally be met within CMMC as it relates to this. Generally, about 20 to 30 controls are contributed to being met or documented by the deployment of Purview. Now, as of course your estate changes, we need to extend those tools, right? So if we're going to allow organizations or customers to be able to go and start using AI platforms, that extends our boundary, and so we need to make sure that the tools that we're using are extended to those as well. Of course, I mentioned the final rule goes live November 10th, and again, between the policy implementation as well as the technical implementation and this monitoring, we believe that this is the best way to be able to allow for AI usage in a way that's going to be secure and compliant. So just want to give a bit of a demo here and set the stage. So the way that the kind of core aspect to how the DSPM model within M365 works is it does rely on a browser plugin, as that is, of course, the most common way that users are going to interact with AI via the browser. So that browser plugin does come in the form of either Edge or Chrome. There's not a plugin for Firefox. Once that plugin is deployed, you can deploy it through Intune or through whatever method you want to. And once that's deployed, essentially you've got your devices onboarded to Defender as well. And so that is the whole estate as far as what needs to happen from a prerequisites perspective. Once that's happened, we can then start to begin to create policy. A scenario that I'm going to use here is we've got a CUI document that the user has access to within Word, and they're going to attempt to copy that content and try to paste it into an AI site. Now, the plugin itself is going to analyze that content as it's copied, and then based on the policies that we have deployed in this particular environment, it's going to find if there's a violation there that it contains CUI based on our policies, and then of course block and notify. And as I mentioned, all of these things are of course logged in the Purview logs, and then you can trigger additional automations like alerts. You can increase user risk, create an incident, etc. Now, this is just one aspect of what the solution really entails, and it's really focused on data loss, the data loss prevention aspect. There are also other aspects that I'll talk about here in just a second that also can be deployed. So this is a quick video here. We've got a user, they can select some example CUI content that we've got a policy that indicates. User changes over to Gemini here, and you'll see that when they try to paste in, they get that pop up in the top left corner there. That is customizable. In this case, you'll see the notification just looks like this. But of course, we can customize that how we'd like to. Again, this works across Chrome and Edge on the PC side. And then across over 100 AI platforms. Microsoft's constantly updating that list. It is available publicly, and you can also add your own. So if you've got, for example, custom AI deployments that you've done that have different endpoints or URLs, maybe through OpenAI within Azure or over on GCP or AWS, you could add those URLs as well to make sure that we're not that you don't allow users to exfil CUI data over there as well. So that was a scenario. It's very simple, but let me kind of talk a little bit more about additional scenarios here. So an additional scenario could be, again, if you're familiar with insider risk, for example, that a user has over and over again tried to exfil CUI data, for example, into an AI platform. Each time that happens, we could be increasing their insider risk score such that once it gets to a certain threshold, we can implement additional controls, right? So for example, we could completely restrict access to a specific set of AI sites if we wanted to through Defender for Endpoint, We could also create an incident. We could notify their manager. We could do just about anything you want from that perspective through insider risk. There's also ethical compliance, or excuse me, ethical AI as well, which relies on the communications compliance aspect of Purview. And those particular policies are more focused on the actual content of AI. So it might not be necessarily me trying to exfil CUI data, but instead my AI governance is maybe looking at a user is trying to figure out a way through AI prompts to harm a company or individual or something like that. And so those policies all ride and are based on that particular plugin that's essentially monitoring all AI usage through the browsers as users are performing that. Jumping over to more of the housekeeping side of this, talking about what it looks like from the back end. So as you would expect, there's a robust set of logs that are generated, as I mentioned. In this case, this is from a DLP match here. You see, of course, that the various different types of interactions we're having through different AI apps. I just onboarded or used just 3 here: Copilot, Gemini, and ChatGPT. But any others that are part of the list, which I do have a link to at the end of this presentation, would also be filtered there and see the different types. Of course, we're focusing on CUI here and what we've defined as CUI in our lab here. It's not really a real definition of CUI. But you can also look at other sensitive information types as well. So if you wanted to make sure that you're not, the users aren't trying to exfil PHI data or PCI data or other types of sensitive data that you've identified, such as intellectual property, for example, all those sensitive information types can also be created via, have policy created, which they're looking for. You see here the details. It looks what it looks like when that happens. As you would imagine, you also get slice and dice type graphs as well. So in this case, we're just looking at a time frame. We can see the number of interactions. We can see the DLP match is the activity type. And we can see it was matching AI apps, what app it was accessed in, who it was, obviously, in the sensitive information type in this case. So all the data you would expect and you've come to potentially use already out of Purview. So I'll go back to one of the more foundational things I talked about, which was data labeling. So part of the DSPM that's been introduced now and moved over from the Purview portion of Purview labeling side are data risk assessments. Data risk assessments are really focused on surfacing where you have data, where there's sensitive data detected, and if there's oversharing that may be occurring. Now, this is important because it allows you to address the issue head on, right? In this case, you see we've got 88 sensitive items detected with no links sharing data. I know in our lab, we disable external sharing for sensitive data, so that's likely the reason why. But you can use this information to actually dive into SharePoint sites, Teams, or OneDrive to actually start to have a labeling approach to start protecting data at its source. So we talked about the technical aspects of this and how to implement policy. I think also important that we've seen is workforce and operational readiness. Preparing for this has become something that we've discovered, again, through large-scale Copilot deployments on the commercial side is really important. If you are an Evolve 365 customer today, this is a quick add-on you can add to actually create or have additional content added to your Evolve platform, and your learning strategist can actually start to work with you on how to deploy this content. So if you're interested in that, reach out to your learning strategist and they can certainly tell you about that. But AI workforce training is really about skilling up, and so users can confidently use Gen AI tools as well as understand how secure AI adoption is partly on them. There are data security best practices and workshops that focus on how we handle data and making sure that we're identifying data and understanding how the risk might be if a user uploads data that might not be appropriate. Of course, there's also, as anything, change management as it relates to AI and the integration of AI into operations. And so documenting that, whether that be in your SSP as part of your landscape or as part of your operational program, that's certainly important and something that needs to happen as you start to adopt these AI tools. So to ensure secure data handling in your workflows within the organizations that you manage, really should implement these best practices such as data labeling, enforcing DLP policies, and granular controls. The audits are certainly important as well. So collecting the data is great, but unless you actually have people looking at it or have automation around it, that really doesn't help you from that perspective. And so risk mitigation might include early identification of sensitive data, as we talked about just a minute ago, the various layered security controls that we've talked about, and again, monitoring of your AI interactions. So next, let's talk about a little bit about compliance and incident response and how this fits into that. So DSPM is going to be the tool that allows you to have that continuous oversight of data usage and policy adherence. Again, integrating DSPM and its capabilities into your operational structure is going to be something that's really important for being offensive about protecting data. And of course, again, bringing in all that audit data is important as well. And then your SOC or other folks can actually go and review that data, specifically around insider risk and communication compliance. These are areas generally where you have either legal reviewing insider risk, or you have HR reviewing communication compliance, as generally those things fall under those levels of purview. And so you can allow granular access for those types of resources to be able to go access that data. Lastly, really want to touch on building a culture of responsibility. Again, this goes back to what we've seen in our large-scale Copilot deployments so far, in that education and awareness is certainly a huge key here. This includes understanding, labeling protocols, adhering to access controls, and recognizing the importance of secure AI usage, as well as the ethical implications. Should really foster an environment where data protection is a shared responsibility, supported by training, policies that are clear to the users, and leadership commitment. Embedding this governance culture into the organization, certainly we've seen it to be important on our commercial organizations, and we think it's even more important on the DIB side. I kind of align this to, just as the DoD has annual security training specifically around CUI, this is going to be a place where we potentially would probably want organizations to also have yearly training or onboarding training to support this. I do see we have a question here. Yeah. So there was two questions. Oh, let me wrap up here, and then we'll get to that question, Chris. There's also a couple questions that came in ahead of the event today. So kind of wrapping up, talked about the importance of data governance for AI in the DIB, talk about how DSPM and other aspects of M365 are allowing for data labeling. I've talked about how these tools can actually work within managing the generative AI platforms, both Copilot and third party, how some of these things map to specific requirements in the regulatory side, the importance of workforce readiness and training, best practices and risk mitigation, and then essentially the recommendation here is to start exploring DSPM, understanding AI usage within your organization, and begin to identify how you can deploy governance. Yeah, so let me jump to these two pre-questions here, and then we'll get to your question, Chris. So the first one was, is the solution CMMC compliant? Looking for examples of DIB or DID using these solutions with CUI information. So inherently, as this solution does run an M365 GCC high, the statement could be that yes, the solution is CMMC compliant. I think more importantly is that the DSPM is really going to help you maintain your compliance as you start to allow users to use AI tools. In other words, again, protecting data so it's not leaving the environment unprotected, or so it's not leaving the environment at all, would be the approach and kind of view I would take on that. Now, of course, since This DSPM functionality just launched about a month ago within GCC High, and there has not been a ton of fanfare around it. We don't have any large-scale deployments of this yet. However, I can imagine that now that it's gained some traction, and with the upcoming release of Copilot at some point, DSPM is going to be something that a lot of organizations are going to lean into for deployment. And then can you address how government framework you are recommending would have impacted some of the recent Copilot data leak vulnerabilities over the past couple of months? Trying to understand how Copilot affects our attack surface. Yeah, so I don't know that I have any comments on the leaks themselves, but as with everything, right, there's a multi-layered approach here. I think a couple of the attacks were email-based and did some prompt injection without clicking. And that's going to be a place where something like Defender for Office 365 is going to be more important, right? Making sure that we don't have active text or attachments or safe links, or that safe links or safe attachments are deployed as policy are certainly good layers there. And then also, of course, user education. However, there's certainly other layers that need to be important there, right? So if you've got a CASB solution or you've got endpoint monitoring and those types of things, those are also going to layer into the success and also trying to reduce the attack surface. This is more focused on the actual end user, willful end user interactions with Copilot, or with AI, I should say, through a browser. And then, Chris, you were asking about do the tools require additional licensing? At this point, they do not. So that's the comment I can give you on that. DSPM is really just wiring up of a bunch of different aspects of Purview at this point. And so there's not any additional tools right now. I would venture to guess that just kind of like everything Microsoft, there's going to be an enhanced version of DSPM at some point in the future that potentially could require some additional licensing. But right now, this should, if you're an M365 E5 licensee, even if you just have one, you should be able to see DSPM in the Purview portal, purview.microsoft.us, and you should see DSPM as a solution as long as you're licensed for at least M365 E5 or another suite that includes Purview. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hop back over to questions here. If there's any other questions.
Is it okay if we ask our questions here, Matt?
Yeah, go for it, Chris.
Oh, all right. How are you doing?
Good.
So if you don't have a Purview P2 license, right? Will this new tool still work the same way? Like if you're partially licensed for E5, but you don't have a P2 for Purview, will the tool just like partially work? Or do you need to have all the underlying components for this to come together and work kind of in harmony and do what it's meant to do?
Yes, that's a good question. So the answer is there are aspects that will work, right? So the main focus within DSPM is DLP. So if you have DLP policies deployed and that you have you have sensitive information types defined and labels, those are really the foundational items. That's really how it vectors on finding the data and monitoring those interactions. So at this point, yeah, for things like communication compliance or insider risk that have add-on capabilities, right now in the GCC High side, the functionality of DSPM itself is even more limited than on the commercial side. And so even some of the AI tools within DSPM that are available on commercial aren't available in High. And so essentially right now you have a pretty kind of foundational set of functionality that's available that I don't see it being any sort of it doesn't require that P2 license to completely function. You might get better functionality, for example, if you're looking at like automatic labeling through custom sits or trainable classifiers, those kind of things. But as it stands today, like in our lab, I just have the normal M365 E5 license with Purview.
Is it visible and accessible today if we bring up Purview? It is. Okay, so it's something that we could begin like experimenting with in our test environment.
100%. Yeah. So if you just, yeah, in the purview.microsoft.us portal, you'll see if you go to solutions, it might not be pinned on the left-hand side. You have to go to solutions, and then you should see DSPM listed there.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, yeah. Question is is it only for cut and paste into AI models? Does it work for copy and paste just through the browser on any site?
Yeah. So it's the functionality that it uses is built on that. So Defender for Endpoint has that functionality built into it for anything. So you could actually have cut, copy, paste DLP policies for any interactions across sites. The reason that they have chosen to specifically go down this route is that the plugin is collecting more data than the endpoint DLP plugin does. So in other words, it's collecting more about the model and what model that user's trying to use, the type of interaction they're doing, et cetera. So this just builds on some functionality that's been available in endpoint DLP for a while, just to gather some additional data within the interaction.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
On the plugin, does that support non-Microsoft browsers as well, or is it just an Edge?
It's just Edge and Chrome.
Edge and Chrome. Does it work on the Macs as well?
Right now, I don't believe that there is a capability on the Mac side.
And does it extend to mobile?
It does not extend to mobile.
Ooh, okay. So this is a Windows-only solution at the moment.
At the moment, it's Windows-centric, yes.
Okay,
Which,
all right.
Yeah, which I would say, traditionally that's always where Microsoft starts.
Okay.
Given that the endpoint DLP aspects of this exist on macOS, I would see it extended relatively quickly. But for right now, yeah, it is Windows-centric.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? As always, a recording of this will be sent out. And here are some links that you can also use there. Again, the supported AI sites, a list of about 100 or so. Microsoft is updating that relatively frequently. And so as new AI startups come online, they're trying to keep that updated as well. And then lastly, you can also add your own custom sites through a custom site list within Endpoint DLP. All right. Well, that'll wrap it up for today. Thank you for attending this session, and look forward to seeing you at the next one. Appreciate it.